Republican Steve Scalise has dropped out of the race to become US House Speaker after the historic ousting of Kevin McCarthy. After being narrowly nominated on Wednesday, House Republicans earlier today met behind closed doors for 2 hours to try to resolve divisions in the party so Scalise could secure their full backing. The majority leader then met separately with those opposed to him and scheduled a second members-only meeting, but could not find a way to unite the party. It leaves the Republican Party in chaos and the House paralysed. It's not yet clear whether another vote for Speaker will be held. Joining me now live is political scientist at Sydney University, Jackman. Simon, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to, of course, get to the situation in Israel, but let's begin with that breaking news. So what happens now?
Who knows? I think they're going to have to go back and perhaps the second place candidate, and that was Jim Jordan, that Scalise had narrowly defeated. But it is such a... chaos is the right word, Danica. So here's the issue. You've got a group on the far right of the Republican course that are absolutely digging in, refusing the compromise on the ability to get things to the floor of the House. They want agenda control, essentially. And as they did with Speaker McCarthy, they want the grim trigger strategy. And that is, if you deviate from these commitments you're making to us now, we reserve the right to call a spill, just as we did with McCarthy. And I think if you're looking at taking on that job of being the leader of that group, that's just not tenable. And I think finding a way that what compromises can be made with the sizable right flank of the Republican Party and find a way through. There is so much precedent for this, though. I'll take you all the way back to Newt Gingrich. I'll take you through John Boehner. I'll take you through Paul Ryan. There's a structural issue at work here. It's not just about the personalities that we're seeing in this particular version of this. This is a story we've seen 4 or 5 times now over the last 30 years in American politics, that the Republican Party, when they achieve a majority on the floor of the House of Representatives, now represent such radical elements on one side and a few moderates on the other, that being able to come together and set rules of engagement as how they proceed as a majority governing party has eluded them time and time and time again. This is just the latest instance of that.
Well, you described it as chaos, and it certainly seems like that. Where does it leave the House, particularly when it comes to dealing with important matters?
Now, this is the rub, right? We can talk about the politics and make some popcorn, enjoy the show, sort of as a spectacle. But there's real substance underlying this. And right now, the US House of Representatives is tied up. It cannot pass aid budgets for Ukraine, even if it wanted to, by the way, and that's another question. A package for Israel seems to be in abeyance right now as well. And they did get a short extension on funding the entire American government, but that will expire in only a couple of weeks from now. So the legislative business of the United States government, of the Congress, is essentially suspended until the majority party, the Republicans, can solve this quandary and have a speaker. It is not just a ceremonial role. It is a constitutional role. And the House, by its own rules, cannot transact a lot of really critical business until they have a speaker. The speaker in the American system of government is the third in line to the second after the vice president should a calamity befall the president. This is not just a ceremonial role. Important matters of substance are backed up behind this.
All right, let's move on now, of course, to this ongoing situation in Israel and the US response. What role is the US set to play in this conflict, do you think?
Yeah, so a couple of observations on this one. Look, the US has been unambiguous in its support of Israel, and it's actually returned, tragically, US-Israel relations, I think, to a place where I think there was a lot of rumblings about was Biden and the Democratic administration as supportive of Israel was as its predecessor administration, the Trump administration, and other American administrations, was US strategic focus elsewhere, Ukraine, Indo-Pacific, what have you. Very quickly, it's a needle on the record sort of transition in the last couple of days, literally. There is no question about US support for Israel in this situation. Arms shipments have been a big piece of it, giving Israel that much vaunted regional military superiority. It has always been in play, but I think is not going away. And if anything, if the Congress can find a speaker, expect a healthy injection of military aid and support. The other thing is behind the scenes, given that there are US citizens being held captive in Gaza or so, that's the best reports that are coming out into the public domain. The US will not just be offering support of the kind it has offered Israel historically, but expect some real close to operational support, particularly I would imagine in the intelligence domain, where the US capability on the technical side in particular is unbeaten in the world. You match that up with Israel's on the ground capabilities, or what we thought were great on the ground capabilities. The combined intelligence operation that can be brought to bear will be formidable. And other things that I doubt we will ever hear about, but operational support to some of the missions that I imagine are currently underway, particularly if we get down to going after high-value targets on the Hamas side, but perhaps hostage extraction operations. And again, things that we may never hear about, but I expect that kind of support is fully underway. It is enormously complicated by the political turmoil in Washington. But the House Intelligence Committee continues to exist even without a speaker. But the big picture there, though, is that I think this tragedy, this crisis, has actually brought Israel and the United States much closer together, incredibly rapidly. And Biden is now seen as a welcome figure, perhaps in Israel, and I expect he will visit at some point in the not too distant future. Welcome with open arms in a way that he would not have been. I expect it would have been a very different visit and temperature 4, 5, 6 months ago. Incredibly critical of Netanyahu's efforts to marginalize the court system and entrench himself in power.
Yeah, look, no doubt about it. It's certainly a developing situation every day. Simon Jackman, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you. Great to be with you.